Light meter is the darkest phrase in cricket. If you aren't watching the game and you hear it, it still affects you physically. Like, you start seeing shadows, monsters, saviors. Something is happening just as, I suppose, nothing is about to.
This is the last book. It's almost as good as a Minecraft video. Imagine that.
Menon's light meter was either a bastion of hope or an instrument of doom. There is something so god-awfully weird about cricket that it's this great sport that mixes skills, athleticism, gardening, endurance, and strategy. But here we were looking at middle-aged men in sun hats trying to work out a piece of technology as they hold it like around their groin level, deciding our fate. How many millions of people were watching Nitin Menon and Virender Sharma's devices? These 1980s looking cell phone things just telling us if we can laugh, cry or cheer. And the entire last session was full of mad moments, partly because of this pitch. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was shifty. A ball from Ajaz Patel ragged and kept low on day 1, early on day 1. Yet on day 5, the balls were still playing low, but true? Or at least true-ish? Kind of like a story from a grandparent with a bit of harmless tax thrown on it. Mostly the ragging went away, or it stayed in non-dangerous areas. And when it was low, it was often slow. And the sudden rushes of wickets, they just never came. And the ball looked like it was going to be predictable as well. The new pill helped the bowlers for spin or pace. And then at the 30 over mark, it was like someone would deflate it. And we just had to wait for a replacement or reverse for the bowlers to get back in front again. But even then, after 4 days of that pattern, this old ball played some incredible tricks, and the new ball was actually relatively benign in comparison. And of course, the light was weird. On almost every day, like an old man with like a fastidious morning routine, umpires Menon and Sharma would take a light reader meeting near the stumps. And sometime in the next 8 minutes, we'd be off the field. But not on day 5. No, on day 5, Menon held the light meter on more occasions than Ishant Sharma touched the ball. The pitch was on its own trip, the ball changed profiles, and the light was in control of our emotions. And look at everything that I've mentioned so far, we haven't got to the cricket yet. 1 ball before tea, New Zealand was on cruise control on a slow and low wicket that didn't spin that much, that was tough to bat on, but also tough to be dismissed on. And New Zealand had Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson at the crease. They have over 33,000 runs at international level combined. Numbers 1 and 2, all time for New Zealand. Taylor was on his way to being the greatest Kiwi batter ever before Kane Williamson came in to ruin it. You absolutely would want these two at the crease if you are a New Zealander. This is your dream team. And then Taylor missed a ball from Jadeja, and he just seemed to walk. Maybe it wasn't a traditional walk, perhaps he saw the umpire's hand rising, but there was no discussion with Williamson about the line of the ball. Taylor displayed utter pragmatism. He knew he was out, and so he left. And that completely opened up the final session. 6 wickets from one session is a big deal. It's all well and good if you have a shallow batting lineup, which New Zealand doesn't, or the pitch is a minefield, which it wasn't. After tea, Henry Nicholls reviewed an LBW with the kind of confidence I wish I could fake. He brashly walked down the wicket, completely convinced that he would get his plumber then plum jam LBW overturned. Instead, it was another wicket to Akshar Patel, who India very much treated like the 5th bowler, despite the fact that he and Kyle Jamieson are statistically 2 of the greatest bowlers of all time, if, you gerrymander the minimum wickets required. Nicholls' wicket was a problem, but there was still Williamson at the crease. A man so popular in cricket, people are starting to follow him like he's a nice version of Cristiano Ronaldo. This is Mr. Steady the Ship. A man so revered that Kiwi fans wear silly hats in honour of him. And he had been playing forward defensive shots with his bat an improbable inch below the surface to ensure one wouldn't get under it. And yet, it did. I don't know what it's like watching Kane Williamson be dismissed trying to block out a draw in the final session of a test in India as a New Zealand fan. But I assume it's like seeing your mate kiss your first girlfriend. Kind of sucks the energy out of you. Now imagine his teammates. They are watching the ball get under the thickest bat in New Zealand history. I mean, how do you even go on? But that isn't what happened. Tom Blundell in his first Asian test and Rachin Ravindra in his first test played really well. And for a long time it seemed like the pitch was dead and that they might even edge home. Until Blundell middled a ball onto his leg stump. Yeah, that happened. That in itself is so weird. R. Ashwin tried everything in this match to get wickets, sometimes bowling up to 10 different deliveries in a single over, or at least, it felt that way. And yet he ended up with his 2 most important wickets from the middle of the bat and a huge batting error from Tom Latham. The Blundell wicket brought in Jamieson, New Zealand's 3rd top scorer in the first innings. So far, neither of Jamieson's averages make sense. It's like we're all living in his dream, waiting for him to wake up. Yet this perfect specimen of cricket humanity seemed to walk for his LBW. The TV cameras actually gave him out caught, but he missed a straight one and was taken on the back leg and off he went. He spent more time looking at the replay as he walked off than he did thinking about the review. Not so much Tim Southey, who at least seemed to review for the single reason that it would take time out of the game. It appeared like a tactical review to suck out the last few minutes of India's natural light, until he saw the replay that he hadn't hit the ball and he just trudged off. New Zealand's lack of skullduggery was incredible. No 12th man was jogging on every over break with scores from Pakistan's chase. The new batters didn't suddenly remember that they brought out two of the same glove. The Kiwis didn't even get together mid-over to pretend to talk about essential cricket matters while they were planning their dinner. They just played cricket. And if there was truly a time-wasting review in this innings, it probably had to go to India when they went with one for an Ashwin LBW. It was probably always on the wrong side of leg stump, but maybe worth a go in desperate times. But India didn't just burn a review, they burnt sunlight. And the Indians kept one eye on the screen and one on the sky. It felt like this was India's last moment in the game, but the light fluctuated like it was trolling everyone watching. It meant that India had to go with no pace, so sadly they threw the ball to the most potent three-man spin creature in the game. But by the end, Rahane had just given up bowling two of the three in tandem, and he just pressed shuffle on his iPod and let it decide his fate. Ashwin, Jadeja, Akshar, Ashwin, Aksha, and Jadeja bowled the last 6 overs in that order. Well, not so much order, but necessary chaos. And up against this slow bowling killing machine was two of the most unlikely enemies. Mumbai-born Ajaz Patel, and the man so linked to Indian cricketers that his parents doubled down on it in his own name. Rachin, Rahul plus Sachin, Ravindra. Just on his own, Ravindra is such a weird cricketer, an opening bat who bowls part-time, being asked to bat at number 7 and bowl important overs against India. And you had someone who qualifies to play with India, and another guy trying to upset half of the portmanteau, of his name. Imagine playing your first test, and you're out in the middle, trying to stop the man you were named partly after from getting his first win as coach. I'm not sure if you can imagine that, because it's really weird. And that was in no way the weirdest thing about the end of this game. It wasn't even Ajaz Patel, who was running between wickets to get himself back on strike like he had no idea of the gravity of the situation. It was definitely the light that was the weirdest. Had Jamieson still been in the middle, he might have blocked out the sun enough for them to come off the field. Hell, a flock of birds just going over as Sharma and Menon were checking their chunky appliance would have been enough for game over. And Menon was like the guy at the party who has selfies of himself with a celebrity. He was showing the screen to everyone just so they knew he wasn't bullshitting about the light meter. And yet still, no one seemed to believe him. All the eyes watching this were suddenly experts. But we had entered a realm where it was too dark not to mention and not light enough to play in any comfort. I swear at one stage I saw Menon give someone out and then strain to see his own finger in the gloom. It was getting lighter, then darker, then seemingly both at the same time. Light wasn't electromagnetic radiation with properties from both waves and particles. It was what Nitin Menon and his universal remote said it was. Dark, light, both, neither, all at once. And in the middle of this, the Rahul Sachin hybrid and the kid from Mumbai blocked out just 3 of the dead set most incredible spin bowlers in the world. The number 11 and the guy who was dismissed with half a blade in the first innings went ball after ball off the middle of the bat. Maybe some spooky moments, but hardly any real chance. And Ashwin was trying everything except bowling on both sides of the wicket at once, which to be fair, he had tried earlier in this test. And all of this was happening without us knowing when it would end. 1 wicket, minimum overs, quick spinners, and 1 stray cloud from stumps at all times. And we just had to wait. There was no answers, no certainty. Maybe New Zealand would draw. India could win. Also, the sun could implode, leaving us all to freeze and die. But finally, the light came for the match. This pitch was shifty, and the ball often soft. But the light meter and its wise men had the final say. If there was still enough rays of sunshine left at the ground, I'm sure the light meter would have read 0-0.